The fluorescent lights in the hospital hallway buzzed softly as Min Seo Choi walked through the pediatric ward. It was 10 o'clock at night and her shift had just begun. She carried her clipboard and stethoscope, ready for another long night of checking on sick children. Min Seo was 28 years old with tired eyes that still managed to sparkle with kindness. Her uniform was a bit worn but always clean and pressed. Min Seo had been working at Metropolitan General Hospital for 3 years. She loved her job even though it was hard. Every night she walked these same halls checking temperatures, giving medicine, and comforting crying children. But lately she felt exhausted. She worked 2 jobs to pay for her mother's medicine and their small apartment. Some nights she barely slept 4 hours before starting her day job at a local clinic. As she walked past the nurses' station, she heard 2 other nurses talking. "That boy in room 304 is still here," one of them said. "3 weeks now and his family barely visits. So sad." The other nurse shook her head. "I heard his father only came once. Left some expensive gifts and disappeared." "Rich people have no heart," Min Seo frowned. She had noticed the boy before during her rounds, but she had never stopped to talk to him. She was always so busy, rushing from one patient to another. Tonight something made her want to know more. "Which boy are you talking about?" she asked. "Jiwon Park in 304, the first nurse replied. 8 years old. Has cerebral palsy. His left leg doesn't work properly, so he uses a wheelchair. Sweet kid, but so quiet. He barely says a word to anyone." Min Seo nodded and continued her rounds. She checked on a baby with a fever, helped a 6-year-old boy who needed water, and adjusted the blankets for a sleeping girl. Finally, she reached room 304. The door was slightly open and she could see inside. The room was bigger than the others, with expensive-looking furniture and toys scattered around. But what caught Min Seo's attention was the small boy sitting in his wheelchair by the window. He was staring outside at the dark sky, his shoulders slumped forward. Even from the doorway, Min Seo could see his sadness. She knocked gently on the door. "Hello, may I come in?" The boy didn't turn around. He just kept staring out the window. Min Seo entered anyway, closing the door quietly behind her. She walked slowly toward the boy, not wanting to startle him. "Hi there. My name is Min Seo. I'm one of the night nurses. What's your name?" The boy still didn't respond. Min Seo could see his reflection in the window glass. His face was pale and thin, with dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't smiled in a very long time. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to," Min Seo said softly. She sat down on the edge of the bed, giving him space. "I just wanted to check on you and make sure you're okay." For a moment, there was only silence. Then Min Seo noticed something. The boy's shoulders were shaking slightly. She stood up and walked closer, and that's when she heard it. Soft crying sounds, barely audible. "Oh, sweetheart," Min Seo whispered. She knelt down beside the wheelchair so she could see his face. Tears were streaming down his cheeks, but he was trying so hard not to make any noise. It broke Min Seo's heart. "It's okay to cry," she said gently. "Everyone cries sometimes. Even grown-ups like me." The boy finally looked at her. His eyes were red and puffy. "You cry too?" he asked in a small voice. "Of course I do," Min Seo said with a warm smile. "Just last week I watched a sad movie and cried so much I had to use a whole box of tissues." The boy didn't smile, but he stopped crying as hard. He wiped his face with his sleeve. "I'm Jiwon," he said quietly. "It's very nice to meet you, Jiwon," Min Seo replied. "That's a beautiful name. It means wisdom and kindness, doesn't it?" Jiwon nodded slightly. Most people didn't know what his name meant. This nurse was different. Min Seo looked around the room and noticed several drawings scattered on the table beside the bed. She walked over to look at them. They were pictures of animals, houses, and trees, all colored with crayons. "Did you draw these?" she asked. "Yes," Jiwon answered. "I draw when I'm bored. There's nothing else to do here. These are wonderful," Min Seo said, and she meant it. The drawings were actually quite good for an 8-year-old. "I especially love this one with the dog. Do you like dogs?" Jiwon's eyes brightened just a little. "I love dogs. I've always wanted one, but..." His voice trailed off and the sadness returned to his face. "But what?" Min Seo asked gently. "But I can't take care of a dog. I can't even walk properly. I can't do anything right." Jiwon's voice cracked and fresh tears started falling. Min Seo felt a lump in her throat. She quickly pulled a chair next to Jiwon's wheelchair and sat down. "Jiwon, listen to me. Just because your leg doesn't work the same way as other people's legs doesn't mean you can't do things. You drew these beautiful pictures. That's something special. It's just drawing, Jiwon mumbled. It's not important. Everything we create is important, Minseo said firmly. And you know what? Some of the most amazing people in the world had disabilities. They didn't let it stop them from doing great things. Jiwon looked at her with doubt in his eyes. He had heard adults say encouraging things before, but they always left anyway. They always had somewhere more important to be. Minseo checked her watch. She knew she should continue her rounds. The other nurses would complain if she took too long. But looking at Jiwon's lonely face, she couldn't bring herself to leave just yet. Tell you what, Minseo said. I have to check on other patients now, but I'll come back tomorrow night. Would that be okay? Jiwon shrugged. If you want to. But you don't have to. I know you're busy. I want to, Minseo assured him. And maybe tomorrow you can show me more of your drawings. I'd love to see them. For the first time, Jiwon's expression changed. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. A tiny spark of hope appeared in his eyes. Okay, he said softly. Minseo stood up and gently squeezed Jiwon's shoulder. Try to get some sleep, all right? And if you need anything during the night, just press your call button. I'll come right away. As she walked toward the door, Jiwon called out, Nurse Minseo? She turned around. Yes. Thank you for talking to me. Most nurses just check my temperature and leave. Minseo smiled warmly. You're welcome, Jiwon. See you tomorrow. She left the room and continued her rounds, but she couldn't stop thinking about the lonely boy in room 304. Something about him touched her heart deeply. Maybe it was because she knew what it felt like to be alone. Maybe it was because she had a younger brother who also had health problems when they were growing up. Whatever the reason, Minseo felt a strong need to help this child. What Minseo didn't know was that someone else had been watching the entire interaction. In a luxury office building across the city, a man sat in front of multiple computer screens. He had been watching the hospital security camera feed from room 304. His name was Dae-jung Park, and he was Jiwon's father. Dae-jung was a billionaire, the owner of one of the largest technology companies in the country. He wore an expensive suit and had the look of someone who carried heavy burdens. His face was tired and his eyes were sad as he watched the nurse leave his son's room. He had arranged for special access to the hospital's security cameras. The hospital director had agreed, because Dae-jung had donated millions to the hospital over the years. Dae-jung wanted to see how the staff treated his son when they thought no one important was watching. He wanted to know if they cared about Jiwon as a person, or if they just saw him as another patient. So far, he had been disappointed. Most of the staff did the minimum required. They were professional but distant. They treated Jiwon like a task to complete, not a child who needed comfort and love. But this nurse was different. Dae-jung had watched as Minseo sat with Jiwon, talked to him with genuine kindness, and made him feel important. She didn't know who Jiwon's father was. She had no idea that the boy in room 304 came from one of the richest families in the country. She was kind simply because she cared. Dae-jung wiped a tear from his eye. He felt guilty and ashamed. Here was a nurse who probably earned a modest salary, yet she gave his son more attention and love in 10 minutes than he had given him in months. He had been so focused on building his company, on making more money and gaining more power, that he had forgotten what truly mattered. He picked up his phone and made a call to the hospital director. I need you to do something for me, he said. I want you to monitor Nurse Minseo Choi's interactions with my son over the next few weeks. Don't tell her anything. Just watch and report to me. The director agreed immediately. Dae-jung ended the call and turned back to the screens. He watched as Minseo moved through the hospital, checking on other children with the same gentle care she had shown Jiwon. Let's see if your kindness is real, Dae-jung whispered to the screen. Let's see if you truly care or if this was just a one-time act. He didn't know it yet, but this nurse was about to change everything. The next evening, Minseo arrived at the hospital with a small bag under her arm. Inside were 3 coloring books she had bought from a discount store near her apartment. They weren't expensive, but they had cost her the money she usually saved for lunch. She didn't mind. The thought of Jiwon's sad face had stayed with her all day. As she walked through the pediatric ward, another nurse named Hyejin stopped her. Minseo, are you going to see that Park boy again? Hyejin asked with a smirk. You know we're not supposed to play favorites. I'm not playing favorites, Minseo replied calmly. I'm just checking on a patient who seems lonely. Hyejin rolled her eyes. We all have lonely patients. We can't spend extra time with all of them. We'd never finish our work. She walked away, shaking her head. Mincio took a deep breath and continued to room 304. She knocked on the door and heard a small voice say, "Come in." When she entered, Ji-won was in the same spot by the window. But this time he turned his wheelchair around when he heard her voice. "You came back," he said, surprise clear in his voice. "Of course I did," Mincio said with a smile. "I told you I would. And I brought you something." She held up the bag. Ji-won's eyes widened. "For me?" Mincio pulled out the coloring books and showed them to him. One had animals, one had spaceships and stars, and one had scenes from nature. "I thought you might like these. I saw your drawings yesterday and I think you're really talented." Ji-won wheeled himself closer to look at the books. His hands reached out carefully as if the books might disappear if he touched them. "These are for me to keep?" he asked in disbelief. "Yes, they're all yours," Mincio confirmed. "Which one would you like to color first?" Ji-won studied all 3 books carefully. Finally, he picked the one with animals. "This one," he said. Can you color with me?" Mincio checked her watch. She had rounds to do, but they could wait a little longer. "I'd love to," she said, pulling a chair next to his wheelchair. They opened the book to a page with a puppy. Ji-won picked up a brown crayon and started coloring carefully, staying inside the lines. Mincio picked up a green crayon and started coloring the grass around the puppy. "You're not very good at coloring," Ji-won said, and for the first time, there was a hint of amusement in his voice. Mincio had colored outside the lines. Mincio laughed. "You're right. I'm terrible at it. Good thing you're here to show me how it's done." Ji-won actually smiled. It was small, but it was real. They colored together in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Ji-won spoke quietly. "Nobody ever brings me things. Nobody except my dad, but he only came once. He brought expensive toys and games, but then he left. He said he had important work." "Your dad must be very busy," Mincio said carefully, not wanting to upset him. "He's always busy," Ji-won said, his voice flat. "He's been busy since Mom died 2 years ago. Sometimes I think he wishes I had died instead of her." Mincio's heart broke. She put down her crayon and turned to face Ji-won fully. "Ji-won, I'm sure that's not true. Sometimes when people lose someone they love, they don't know how to handle their sadness. They bury themselves in work because it's easier than feeling the pain." "Do you really think so?" Ji-won asked, looking at her with hopeful eyes. "I do," Mincio said. "And I think your dad loves you very much, even if he doesn't show it the right way." Ji-won went back to coloring, but Mincio could see he was thinking hard about her words. After a moment, he asked, "Do you have kids?" "No, I don't," Mincio answered. "But I have a younger brother. When we were little, he was sick a lot. He couldn't run and play like other kids. I used to spend hours with him reading books and playing quiet games. He felt like a burden too, just like you do." "What happened to him?" Ji-won asked. "He got better as he grew older. He's in college now, studying to be a teacher. He wants to help other kids who feel different or left out." Mincio smiled at the memory. "He told me that the time we spent together when he was sick was the most important time in his life. It made him feel loved." Ji-won absorbed this information silently. Then he did something unexpected. He reached out and touched Mincio's hand. "Thank you for spending time with me," he whispered. Mincio squeezed his hand gently. "It's my pleasure, Ji-won. Now, should we teach you a fun game?" "What kind of game?" Mincio showed him a simple finger game that didn't require moving his legs. It was a counting game where they had to tap their fingers in a pattern. Ji-won struggled at first, but then he started laughing when he made mistakes. The sound of his laughter filled the room, bright and clear. They played for another 15 minutes before Mincio had to leave. "I really need to check on my other patients now," she said reluctantly. "But I'll come back on my break, okay?" "Okay," Ji-won said. He looked happier than he had in weeks. "Mincio, yes? You're my favorite nurse." Mincio felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. "You're one of my favorite patients too," she said with a warm smile. "See you soon." As she left the room and continued her rounds, she didn't notice Nurse Hyejin watching her from down the hall with a disapproving look. Hyejin went straight to the senior nurse supervisor's office. Mincio spent the next hour checking on other children. She gave medicine, changed bandages, and comforted a crying toddler. But her mind kept drifting back to Ji-won. During her break, she returned to room 304 as promised. Ji-won was still coloring, and he had made significant progress on the puppy picture. "Look," he said excitedly when she came in. "I finished the puppy and started on the cat on the next page." "Wow, you're fast," Min Seo said, genuinely impressed. "And you're doing such a neat job. Have you ever thought about being an artist when you grow up?" Ji-won's face fell. "I can't be an artist. I can't be anything. I can't even walk." Min Seo sat down beside him again. "Ji-won, there are many famous artists who had disabilities. They didn't let their bodies stop their creativity. Your mind and your hands work perfectly. That's what you need for art." "Really?" Ji-won asked doubtfully. "Really," Min Seo confirmed. "In fact, I know a painter who uses a wheelchair. She creates the most beautiful paintings I've ever seen. She says her wheelchair doesn't define who she is. It's just a tool to help her move around." This seemed to make Ji-won think. He looked at his wheelchair with new eyes. "I never thought about it like that. I always saw my wheelchair as a prison." "Maybe try seeing it as your chariot instead," Min Seo suggested. "Knights had chariots. Princes had chariots. Your wheelchair carries you wherever you want to go." Ji-won giggled at this. "A chariot," he repeated. "I like that." They talked for a while longer. Ji-won told Min Seo about his favorite cartoons, his love of animals, and how much he missed going to school. Min Seo listened carefully to everything, asking questions and showing genuine interest. No one had really listened to Ji-won in so long. He felt like he mattered again. When Min Seo finally had to leave, she noticed something. Ji-won's dinner tray was sitting on the table, completely untouched. "Ji-won, you didn't eat your dinner," she said with concern. Ji-won shrugged. "I'm not hungry. The food here tastes bad." Min Seo picked up the tray and looked at it. The food was cold and didn't look very appetizing. "When did they bring this?" she asked. "A long time ago. Maybe 2 hours?" Ji-won guessed. Min Seo frowned. She knew that hospital food wasn't great, but children needed to eat, especially children who were recovering. "Tell you what, let me see if I can warm this up for you and maybe find something extra that you might like. What's your favorite food?" "I like rice and egg," Ji-won said. "And soup. My mom used to make me soup when I was sick." "I'll see what I can do," Min Seo promised. She took the tray and headed to the staff kitchen. She warmed up the rice and found some extra broth to make a simple soup. She even found a hard-boiled egg in the fridge that was meant for staff, but she gave it to Ji-won instead. When she brought the improved meal back to him, Ji-won's face lit up. "This looks much better," he said. Min Seo helped him set up his tray and made sure he could reach everything. "Eat slowly and eat as much as you can," she instructed. "You need your strength." Ji-won ate more than he had in days. Having someone care about whether he ate or not made the food taste better somehow. When he finished, he looked at Min Seo with gratitude. "That was good. Thank you." "You're very welcome," Min Seo said, collecting the tray. "Now I really do have to finish my rounds. But I'll check on you later before my shift ends, okay?" "Okay," Ji-won agreed. He looked tired but content. "Min Seo, will you come tomorrow night too?" "I'll be here every night this week," Min Seo assured him. "You can count on it." After she left, Ji-won sat in his wheelchair feeling something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Happiness. He picked up his crayons and started coloring again, this time humming a little tune. Across the city, Dae-jung sat in his office watching the security footage. He had watched every interaction between Min Seo and his son. He saw the coloring books, the games, the conversation, and the way she made sure Ji-won ate. His hands were shaking as he watched. This nurse had spent her own money on his son. She had given up her break time. She had listened to Ji-won talk about his feelings and his dreams. She had treated him like he was precious and important. Dae-jung felt a wave of shame wash over him. He was one of the richest men in the country, yet a nurse who probably struggled to pay her bills was showing his son more love than he had in months. He buried his face in his hands and cried for the first time since his wife's funeral. His assistant knocked on the door. "Sir?" "The board meeting is about to start." "Cancel it," Dae-jung said roughly. "Sir? But it's important." "I said cancel it," Dae-jung shouted. "Cancel everything for the rest of the week. I have more important things to think about." The assistant left quickly, startled by his boss's outburst. Dae-jung turned back to the screens. He watched as Min Seo moved through the hospital, caring for patient after patient with the same gentle kindness she had shown Ji-won. He made a decision. He would continue watching for another week. He needed to know if this nurse's kindness was consistent or just a temporary act, and if it was real. If she truly cared about his son without knowing who they were, then he would find a way to thank her. He would find a way to make things right. But for now, he just watched and learned what it looked like when someone truly cared for his child. 1 week had passed since Min Seo first sat down with Ji-won. Every night she visited him during her shift. She brought him small things, stickers, a book of riddles, colored pencils, and once a small stuffed dog that she found at a thrift store. Ji-won treasured every gift and kept them all arranged carefully on his bedside table. The change in Ji-won was remarkable. He smiled now. He talked more. He even started saying hello to other nurses who came into his room, but everyone noticed that he was happiest when Min Seo was around. His face would light up the moment she walked through the door. On this particular night, Min Seo arrived at work with something special. She had spent hours searching online for information about animals and had printed out pictures of different dog breeds. She knew Ji-won loved dogs and she wanted to teach him about them. When she entered room 304, Ji-won was drawing again. He had filled an entire sketchbook with his artwork. "Min Seo," he called out excitedly. "Look what I drew today." He held up a picture of a nurse with a kind smile. "It's you." Min Seo felt her heart melt. The drawing was simple but sweet. She could see herself in it, the ponytail, the uniform, the smile. "Ji-won, this is beautiful. You made me look so nice." "You are nice," Ji-won said simply. "You're the nicest person I know." Min Seo had to blink back tears. She sat down next to him and showed him the papers she had brought. "I have something for you today. I printed out information about different types of dogs. I thought we could look at them together and you could tell me which ones you like best." Ji-won's eyes grew wide. "Really, can we?" They spread the papers out on the bed, and Min Seo began telling him about each breed. She explained about golden retrievers, German shepherds, poodles, and beagles. Ji-won listened with complete attention, asking questions and pointing at the pictures. "If I could have any dog," Ji-won said thoughtfully, "I think I'd want a golden retriever. They look so friendly and soft." "They are wonderful dogs," Min Seo agreed. "They're very patient and gentle. They're often used as therapy dogs in hospitals because they're so good with people who need extra care." "Really?" Ji-won asked. "Dogs come to hospitals?" "Some hospitals have therapy dog programs," Min Seo explained. "The dogs visit patients and make them feel better. Maybe one day a therapy dog will visit you here." Ji-won's face fell slightly. "But I won't be here forever. The doctor said I might go home next month." "That's wonderful news," Min Seo said. "You must be excited to go home." But Ji-won didn't look excited. He looked worried. "When I go home, I won't see you anymore," he said quietly. "You won't visit me there." Min Seo's heart ached. She hadn't thought about what would happen when Ji-won was discharged. "Well," she said carefully, "we still have time before then. Let's make the most of it, okay?" Ji-won nodded, but he still looked sad. Then he asked the question that had been weighing on his mind for days. "Min Seo, why are you so nice to me? The other nurses do their job, but you're different. You spend time with me even though you don't have to. Why?" Min Seo thought about her answer carefully. "Do you remember I told you about my brother?" she asked. Ji-won nodded. When he was sick and feeling alone, people's kindness made all the difference. A teacher who spent extra time helping him. A neighbor who brought him books. These people didn't have to care, but they did. They taught me that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change someone's whole world. Min Seo touched Ji-won's hand gently. "You remind me that everyone deserves to feel important and loved, no matter what challenges they face." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised Min Seo. "I used to think I was a burden to everyone. That's what I heard one of my dad's friends say once. He said I was the reason my dad was so stressed. That I was too much trouble." "Oh, Ji-won," Min Seo said, her voice filled with emotion. "That's not true. You're not a burden. You're a brave, creative, wonderful boy who happens to need a wheelchair. That doesn't make you trouble. That makes you someone who faces challenges with courage every single day." "Do you really think I'm brave?" Ji-won asked, his voice small. "I know you are," Min Seo said firmly. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when things are hard, and you do that every day." Ji-won smiled through the tears that had started falling. Min Seo hugged him gently, letting him cry. She had learned that Ji-won needed to release the emotions he had been holding inside for so long. After a few minutes, Ji-won pulled away and wiped his eyes. I have a confession, he said. Tomorrow is my birthday. I'll be 9 years old, but I didn't tell anyone because I didn't think anyone would care. Min-seo's mind started racing. Tomorrow was Ji-won's birthday and he thought no one would care. That was unacceptable. Ji-won, your birthday is important. Of course people care. Does your father know? Ji-won shrugged. Maybe. He knew last year but forgot to call until 3 days later. He was in another country for business. Min-seo felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. She needed to focus on Ji-won, not on his absent father. Well, I care, she said. And we're going to make sure your birthday is special. I promise. You don't have to do anything, Ji-won said quickly. I shouldn't have told you. I don't want to be trouble. You're not trouble, Min-seo insisted. And everyone deserves to celebrate their birthday. Now, what's your favorite kind of cake? Chocolate, Ji-won admitted with a shy smile. Chocolate it is, Min-seo declared. Now I need to finish my rounds, but I'll be back later. And tomorrow night, be ready for a surprise. After Min-seo left, she immediately started planning. She went to the nurses' station and found a few nurses who she was friendly with. I need your help, she said. The boy in room 304, Ji-won, has his birthday tomorrow. He thinks no one cares. I want to give him a small celebration. Most of the nurses looked uncomfortable. Min-seo, we can't do special celebrations for every patient, Nurse Hyejin said. It's not professional. Besides, that boy's family is probably planning something already. His family isn't here, Min-seo said, trying to keep her voice steady. He's alone. Don't you think every child deserves to feel special on their birthday? One of the younger nurses, Soo-jin, spoke up. I'll help you, she said. My daughter just had a birthday and I have some leftover decorations at home. I can bring them. Thank you, Min-seo said gratefully. I'm going to buy a small cake on my break. Nothing expensive, just something to make him smile. Nurse Hyejin shook her head and walked away, muttering about inappropriate attachments to patients. But Min-seo didn't care. She knew what she was doing was right. The next evening, Min-seo came to work early with a small chocolate cake. It had cost her the money she was saving for her electric bill, but she didn't care. She also brought birthday napkins and a small package of candles. Nurse Soo-jin met her with colorful streamers and a birthday banner. This is so sweet of you, Soo-jin said as they quietly decorated room 304 before Ji-won arrived back from his physical therapy session. That boy is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to know him, Min-seo replied. He's taught me a lot about courage. They worked quickly, hanging the banner and streamers. Min-seo set up the cake on the bedside table and arranged the candles. Other nurses who had been skeptical started peeking into the room. Seeing the decorations, a few of them smiled. One nurse brought a small gift-wrapped present. Another brought balloons. By the time Ji-won was wheeled back to his room by a hospital aide, a small group of nurses had gathered. When he entered and saw the decorations, his mouth fell open in shock. Surprise! Everyone called out. Ji-won looked around the room in disbelief. The banner read, Happy Birthday, Ji-won. The streamers were bright blue and yellow. The balloons floated near the ceiling. And there on his table was a chocolate cake with 9 candles. You did this for me? He stammered. Min-seo wheeled him closer to the cake. Of course we did. It's your birthday. You're important and you deserve to celebrate. Tears started flowing down Ji-won's cheeks, but this time they were happy tears. I can't believe this. This is the best birthday surprise ever. Make a wish, Min-seo said, lighting the candles. The nurses gathered around and began singing, Happy Birthday. Their voices filled the room with warmth and joy. Ji-won closed his eyes, made a wish, and blew out all 9 candles in one breath. Everyone clapped and cheered. Min-seo cut the cake and gave Ji-won the first piece. He took a bite and grinned. This is delicious, he declared. They all ate cake together, and the nurses who had brought gifts presented them to Ji-won. He received a puzzle, some art supplies, and a book. But the gift he treasured most was the one from Min-seo, a framed photo she had secretly taken of him drawing by the window. She had added a caption that read, Ji-won, artist and brave heart. This is the best present ever, Ji-won whispered, hugging the frame to his chest. Thank you. Thank you all so much. As the celebration wound down and the other nurses returned to their duties, Min-seo stayed with Ji-won. How do you feel? She asked. I feel happy, Ji-won said, smiling so wide his cheeks hurt. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I matter. Like people care about me. You do matter, Ji-won. Very much. Min-seo paused, then added, You made a wish. Can you tell me what it was? Ji-won hesitated, then said, I wished that you could be with me forever. I wished you could be my mom. Min-seo felt tears sting her eyes. She hugged Ji-won close. I may not be your mom, Ji-won, but I care about you like family. And that's something special too. What neither of them knew was that Dae-jung had been watching the entire celebration. He had seen Min-seo spend her own money on his son. He had watched as she organized other staff to make Ji-won feel special. He had heard Ji-won's wish. Sitting in his office, Dae-jung cried openly. His son had wished for a nurse to be his mother because Dae-jung himself had been so absent. The truth hit him like a punch to the gut. He had failed his only child. He had let work consume him while Ji-won suffered alone. He picked up his phone and called the hospital director. I need to know everything about Nurse Min-seo Choi, he said. Her full background, her family situation, her work history, everything. Of course, Mr. Park, the director replied. May I ask why? Because she's given my son something I haven't been able to give him in 2 years, Dae-jung said, his voice breaking. Hope. 3 days after Ji-won's birthday celebration, Min-seo was called to the senior supervisor's office. Her heart sank as she walked down the hallway. She knew this meeting wasn't going to be good. The supervisor, Mrs. Kang, was known for being strict and by the book. Min-seo had heard rumors that several nurses had complained about her spending too much time with Ji-won. She knocked on the door and heard a sharp, Come in. Mrs. Kang sat behind her desk, her face stern and disapproving. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Sit down, Nurse Choi, she said coldly. Min-seo sat, her hands folded nervously in her lap. You wanted to see me? Yes, I did. Mrs. Kang pulled out a file and opened it. I've received several complaints about your conduct with patient Ji-won Park in room 304. Multiple staff members have reported that you spend excessive time with this one patient, neglecting your other duties. Is this true? I complete all my required rounds, Min-seo said, trying to keep her voice steady. I check on every patient. I give all medications on time. I just spend my break time and a few extra minutes with Ji-won because what he needs is professional medical care, not an emotional attachment to his nurse, Mrs. Kang interrupted. We are healthcare providers, not family members. You've crossed a line, Nurse Choi. Min-seo felt her face grow hot. With respect, Mrs. Kang, that boy has been here for a month with almost no visitors. He was depressed and barely eating. Since I started spending time with him, he's improved dramatically. Isn't patient well-being part of our job? Patient well-being includes emotional boundaries, Mrs. Kang replied sharply. I've reviewed your time logs. You've been clocking in late to your rounds by 15 to 20 minutes several times this week. You organized an unauthorized party in a patient's room. You've been bringing personal items from home for this patient. This is highly unprofessional. He was alone on his birthday, Min-seo started to say. That's not our concern. Mrs. Kang's voice rose. We provide medical care. We are not here to replace absent family members or to become emotionally involved with patients. Do you understand how inappropriate your behavior is? Min-seo felt tears threatening but fought them back. I understand that you think I'm wrong, but I also understand that boy needed someone to show him he matters. I would do it again. Mrs. Kang's expression hardened. Then you leave me no choice. I'm issuing you a formal written warning. This will go in your permanent file. If you continue this inappropriate attachment to patient Park, you will be suspended. Do I make myself clear? Crystal clear, Min-seo said, her voice barely above a whisper. Good. You may return to your duties. And Nurse Choi? From now on, you are to spend no more than the required time with room 304. Stick to your medical duties only. No more gifts, no more extra visits, no more special treatment. Min-seo stood up, her legs shaking. She left the office feeling crushed. As she walked back to the pediatric ward, she saw Nurse Hee-jin smirking at her from the nurse's station. It was clear who had filed the main complaint. For the rest of her shift, Min-seo did exactly as instructed. She checked on all her patients, including Ji-won, but she kept her visits brief and professional. When she entered room 304, Ji-won's face lit up as usual. Min-seo, I've been waiting for you. Look, I finished the whole coloring book you gave me. He held up the book proudly. That's wonderful, Ji-won, Min-seo said, but her voice was flat. She checked his vital signs quickly and made notes on her chart. Jiwon noticed immediately that something was wrong. "Are you okay? You seem sad." "I'm fine," Minseo lied. "Just tired. How are you feeling tonight?" "I'm good, but can you stay for a while? I wanted to show you a new drawing I made." Minseo's heart broke. "I'm sorry, Jiwon. I have other patients to check on. I can't stay long tonight." "Oh," Jiwon's face fell. "Okay, maybe later." "Maybe," Minseo said, though she knew she couldn't. "I'll check on you before my shift ends." She left quickly before he could see her tears. The rest of the night was torture for Minseo. She went through the motions of her job, but her mind was on Jiwon. She knew he would be confused and hurt by her sudden distance. But what choice did she have? She needed this job. Her mother depended on her income for medicine. She couldn't afford to be suspended or fired. During her break, instead of visiting Jiwon, she sat in the staff room alone. She put her head in her hands and let herself cry. Another nurse, Sujin, found her there. "Minseo? What's wrong?" Sujin asked with concern. "Mrs. Kang gave me a written warning," Minseo said, wiping her eyes. "She told me I'm too attached to Jiwon. I'm not allowed to spend extra time with him anymore." Sujin sighed and sat down next to her. "I heard Hyejin bragging about reporting you." "I'm so sorry." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Minseo admitted. "I want to keep helping Jiwon, but I can't lose this job. My mother needs her medication. We need to pay rent. I'm already working 2 jobs just to make ends meet." "Life isn't fair sometimes," Sujin said sympathetically. "That boy really cares about you. This is going to be hard on him." "I know," Minseo whispered. "That's what makes it so painful." Later that night, Minseo forced herself to check on Jiwon one final time before her shift ended. When she entered his room, she found him sitting in his wheelchair by the window, just like the first night she met him. He wasn't drawing or coloring. He was just staring outside with that same lost, lonely expression. "Jiwon," Minseo called softly. "I'm checking in before I leave." He didn't turn around. "You're different tonight," he said quietly. "Did I do something wrong?" "No." Minseo rushed to his side. "No, Jiwon, you didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect just the way you are. Then why won't you stay with me?" Jiwon asked, finally turning to look at her. His eyes were red and puffy. He had been crying. Minseo knelt down beside his wheelchair, no longer caring about the rules. "Jiwon, I want to stay. I want to spend time with you every night like we have been. But my boss told me I can't anymore. She says I'm breaking the rules by giving you special attention. So you're going to leave me too?" Jiwon's voice cracked. "Just like everyone else?" "I'm not leaving," Minseo insisted. "I still work here. I'll still check on you every night during my rounds. I just can't stay as long as before." "But why?" Jiwon cried. "Why is it against the rules to be nice to me? Why is it wrong for someone to care?" Minseo had no good answer. She pulled Jiwon into a hug as he sobbed against her shoulder. "It's not wrong, sweetheart. It's not wrong at all. Sometimes adults make rules that don't make sense. But I promise you this. Even if I can't spend as much time with you, I still care about you. That will never change. Do you promise?" Jiwon asked between sobs. "I promise with all my heart," Minseo said. She held him until he stopped crying, gently rubbing his back the way a mother would comfort her child. After a few minutes, Jiwon pulled away and wiped his face. "Minseo, yes? Will you do one thing for me?" he asked. "What is it?" "My mom used to sing me a song when I was scared or sad. She called it a lullaby. After she died, nobody ever sang to me again. Would you sing to me? Just once?" Minseo felt her heart breaking into pieces. "Of course I will." "What was the song?" "I don't remember the name. It was about stars and dreams." She had a beautiful voice. Minseo thought for a moment, then began singing a traditional Korean lullaby that her own mother used to sing to her. Her voice was soft and gentle, filling the quiet room with warmth. She sang about the moon watching over sleeping children, about stars guiding them through dark nights, about love that lasts forever. As she sang, Jiwon closed his eyes and leaned his head against her. A peaceful expression came over his face. When the song ended, he whispered, "That was beautiful. My mom used to make me feel safe like that." "You are safe, Jiwon," Minseo said softly, "and you are loved. Even when I'm not here, remember that someone cares about you very much." "I'll remember," Jiwon promised. "Will you still come tomorrow night?" I'll be here, Min Seo assured him. I work every night this week. I'll check on you even if I can't stay long. Okay, Ji-won said, though his voice was sad. Thank you for the song. Min Seo tucked him into bed and made sure he was comfortable. Try to get some sleep now. Sweet dreams, Ji-won. Sweet dreams, Min Seo. As she left the room, Min Seo felt torn apart inside. She had been given a choice: follow the rules and keep her job, or follow her heart and help a lonely child. Either way, someone would suffer. She walked down the hospital hallway with tears streaming down her face. What Min Seo didn't know was that Dae-jung had watched the entire interaction. He had seen his son's desperation. He had heard Min Seo's beautiful lullaby. He had witnessed a nurse choosing to comfort his child despite being threatened with her job. The security footage showed everything: Ji-won's tears, Min Seo's compassion, and the cruel punishment she received for simply caring. Dae-jung stood up from his desk, his decision made. He had seen enough. This nurse had shown his son more genuine love than he had in 2 years. She had spent her own money, given her time, and risked her job for Ji-won's happiness. She had asked for nothing in return. She didn't know who Dae-jung was or how wealthy he was. She cared about Ji-won simply because he was a child who needed kindness. Tomorrow, Dae-jung would go to the hospital. Tomorrow he would reveal who he was. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight he sat in his dark office and cried for the son he had neglected and the nurse who had filled the gap he had left. He whispered into the empty room, "Thank you for loving my son when I forgot how to." The next morning, Min Seo woke up exhausted. She had barely slept, thinking about Ji-won and the terrible choice she had been forced to make. She got ready for her day job at the local clinic, moving through her morning routine like a robot. Her mother noticed something was wrong. "Min Seo, you look so tired," her mother said with concern. "And you've been crying." "What happened?" Min Seo told her mother everything over breakfast. She explained about Ji-won, the birthday party, and the written warning from Mrs. Kang. Her mother listened carefully, her weathered face full of sympathy. "My dear daughter," her mother said, taking Min Seo's hand, "you have the kindest heart of anyone I know. You've always been this way, even as a child. But you must also be practical. We need your job. We need your income. I hate that you have to choose between helping that boy and keeping your job, but sometimes life forces us to make hard choices." "I know, Mom," Min Seo said sadly, "but it feels so wrong. Ji-won has nobody. His father doesn't visit. He's alone and scared, and I'm the only one who seems to care. How can I just abandon him?" "You're not abandoning him," her mother said gently. "You're still checking on him. You're still his nurse. You just can't give him as much time." "That's different." Min Seo nodded, but the guilt still weighed heavily on her. She kissed her mother goodbye and headed to the clinic for her day shift. The hours dragged by. She saw patient after patient, but her mind kept drifting to Ji-won. Was he okay? Was he eating? Was he sad and confused about why she had changed? At the hospital, Ji-won was having a terrible day. He refused to eat breakfast. He wouldn't do his physical therapy exercises. When the day nurses tried to talk to him, he just turned his wheelchair toward the window and ignored them. All he could think about was how Min Seo had changed. She had promised she cared about him, but then she had acted just like everyone else, distant and too busy. Around noon, the hospital director, Mr. Sung, came to check on Ji-won personally. This was unusual, as the director rarely visited individual patients. "Hello, Ji-won," Mr. Sung said with a professional smile. "How are you feeling today?" Ji-won shrugged and didn't answer. Mr. Sung looked at the untouched lunch tray. "You should eat, young man. You need your strength." "I'm not hungry," Ji-won said flatly. Mr. Sung made some notes on his tablet and left. What Ji-won didn't know was that Mr. Sung had been specifically asked to check on him by Dae-jung Park himself. The director went straight to his office and called Dae-jung. "Mr. Park, I've assessed the situation with your son. He appears to be in emotional distress. He's refusing food and therapy. The day staff reports he's been withdrawn all morning." "I see," Dae-jung said. His voice was heavy with emotion. "And what about Nurse Choi?" "She's not scheduled to work until tonight. But I discovered something you should know. My senior supervisor, Mrs. Kang, issued her a formal written warning yesterday. Apparently, Nurse Choi was spending too much time with your son and other staff complained." Dae-jung felt anger rise in his chest. "She was punished for caring about my son?" "According to hospital policy, nurses must maintain professional boundaries with patients," Mr. Sung explained carefully. While I understand the policy's purpose in this case, Nurse Choi's attention seems to have been beneficial for your son's well-being. More than beneficial, Dae-jung said. She's been the only bright spot in his life. When will Nurse Choi arrive for her shift? 10 o'clock tonight. I'll be there at 9, Dae-jung stated. I want to meet with you, Mrs. Kang and Nurse Choi. And Mr. Sung? Make sure Mrs. Kang understands this meeting is mandatory and urgent. Of course, Mr. Park. May I ask what you're planning? Justice, Dae-jung said simply, and ended the call. That evening, Min-seo arrived at the hospital at her usual time. She was surprised to find a message waiting for her. She was to report to the director's office immediately before starting her shift. Her stomach twisted with anxiety. Had there been more complaints? Was she being fired? She walked to the administrative wing with dread in every step. When she reached the director's office, she knocked nervously. Come in, called a voice. Min-seo opened the door and froze. The office was full of people. Mr. Sung sat behind his desk. Mrs. Kang sat in a chair to the side, looking confused and slightly annoyed. And in the center of the room stood a man in an expensive suit that probably cost more than Min-seo made in 3 months. He was tall and distinguished looking, with tired eyes that seemed to carry great sadness. Nurse Choi, please come in and sit down, Mr. Sung said. His voice was gentler than Min-seo had ever heard it. Min-seo sat in the empty chair, her hands shaking. Have I done something wrong? She asked. No, the man in the suit said. His voice was deep and emotional. You've done everything right. My name is Dae-jung Park. I'm Ji-won's father. Min-seo's eyes widened in shock. Ji-won's father? The man who never visited? The businessman who was always too busy? She didn't know what to say. Dae-jung saw her surprise and continued. I know what you must think of me. An absent father. A man who cares more about his work than his son. And until recently you would have been right. He paused, struggling with his emotions. 2 years ago my wife died suddenly. Ji-won's mother. I didn't know how to handle the grief, so I buried myself in my company. I told myself I was working hard to provide for Ji-won, to secure his future. But the truth is I was running away from my pain and my responsibility. Mrs. Kang shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She clearly hadn't known who Ji-won's father really was. 3 weeks ago I arranged for special access to the hospital's security cameras. Dae-jung continued. I wanted to see how the staff treated my son when they thought no one important was watching. I wanted to know if they saw him as a person or just another patient. He turned to look directly at Min-seo. And then you walked into his room. Min-seo felt her face flush. You've been watching us? I've watched every interaction, Dae-jung admitted. I saw you sit with him that first night when he was crying. I saw you bring him coloring books with money you probably couldn't spare. I watched you organize his birthday party. I heard the lullaby you sang to him last night. His voice broke. I watched you give my son something I failed to give him. Love, attention, and proof that he matters. Tears started falling down Min-seo's cheeks. I didn't know who you were. I didn't do it for recognition or reward. He needed someone. He was so sad and alone. I know, Dae-jung said. That's why what you did means everything. You had nothing to gain. You didn't know I was wealthy. You didn't know I was watching. You cared about Ji-won simply because he's a child who needed kindness. He turned to Mrs. Kang. And then you were punished for it. Mrs. Kang's face went pale. Mr. Park, I was simply enforcing hospital policy. Hospital policy should support patient well-being, not punish it. Dae-jung interrupted, his voice firm. Nurse Choi improved my son's condition dramatically. He was eating better, sleeping better, and emotionally healthier. Then you threatened her job and forced her to stop. Last night my son cried himself to sleep. Today he refused to eat or participate in therapy. You call that professional care? I didn't realize, Mrs. Kang stammered. You didn't realize because you weren't paying attention to what actually matters, Dae-jung said. You were so focused on rules that you forgot about the human being those rules are supposed to protect. Mr. Sung cleared his throat. Mr. Park, what would you like us to do? Dae-jung turned back to Min-seo. First, I want to apologize to you, Nurse Choi. You did nothing wrong. In fact, you did everything right. That written warning will be removed from your file immediately. Thank you, Min-seo whispered. But I want to do more than that, Daijung continued. I've learned about your situation. You work 2 jobs to support your mother. You struggle financially, yet you still spent your own money on my son. That's the kind of person we need caring for children in this hospital. Min Seo didn't know where this was going, but her heart was pounding. I want to offer you a position, Daijung said. Not as a replacement for your current job, but as an addition to it. I'm funding a new program at this hospital, a compassionate care initiative for long-term pediatric patients. These are children who stay in the hospital for weeks or months, children who need more than just medical treatment. They need emotional support, human connection, and someone to remind them they're not forgotten. Min Seo listened in amazement as Daijung continued. I want you to help design and lead this program. You would train other nurses on how to provide emotionally supportive care. You would work with long-term patients, including Jiwon. Your salary would be substantial enough that you could quit your second job and focus on what you do best, caring for children who need you. Daejung's voice became emotional again. You gave my son hope when I gave him nothing. Let me give you the resources to do the same for other children. Min Seo couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. Was this really happening? The salary would be 3 times what you currently make at both jobs combined, Mr. Sung added. You would have full benefits and your mother would be included in the hospital's family medical plan at no cost to you. I don't know what to say, Min Seo finally managed. Say yes, Daejung said softly. Please. My son needs you. Other children need you. And frankly, I need you to teach me how to be a better father. I've been watching you care for Jiwon and I'm learning what it looks like when someone truly puts a child's needs first. Min Seo looked at this powerful, wealthy man standing before her with tears in his eyes. She thought about Jiwon alone in his room, sad and confused. She thought about all the other lonely children in the hospital who needed someone to care. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll do it. Daijung smiled for the first time since his wife died. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mrs. Kang stood up, her face red with embarrassment. Mr. Park, Director Sung, I apologize for my error in judgment. I should have seen what Nurse Choi was accomplishing with your son. Learn from this, Daejung said. Sometimes the rules need to bend for the sake of human compassion. Mr. Sung dismissed Mrs. Kang, who left quickly. Then he turned to Min Seo. We'll work out all the details in the coming days. For tonight, why don't you go see Jiwon? I think he needs to know his favorite nurse isn't going anywhere. Min Seo stood up, still in shock. Can I really go see him now? Even though it's not officially my shift? You can see him anytime you want, Daejung said. In fact, I'd like to come with you. I need to see my son and tell him that things are going to be different from now on. I need to apologize for being absent. He looked at Min Seo with gratitude. And I need to thank him for having you in his life. Together, they walked to room 304. Jiwon sat in his wheelchair by the window, staring at nothing. He hadn't moved in hours. The evening nurse had tried to get him to eat dinner, but he refused. He felt abandoned and hurt. Min Seo had promised she cared, but then she disappeared just like everyone else always did. Maybe nobody really cared about him. Maybe he was meant to be alone forever. He heard his door open but didn't turn around. It was probably just another nurse coming to check his vital signs and leave. He didn't want to talk to anyone except Min Seo, and she obviously didn't want to be around him anymore. Jiwon? A familiar voice called softly. Jiwon's heart jumped. He spun his wheelchair around quickly. Min Seo! There she was, standing in the doorway with tears on her face but a smile on her lips. And next to her stood a tall man in a suit that Jiwon recognized immediately. Dad? Min Seo stepped aside as Daejung walked into the room. He looked at his son with eyes full of regret and love. Hello, Jiwon, he said, his voice shaking. Why are you here? Jiwon asked, confusion written all over his face. You're supposed to be at work. You're always at work. Daejung knelt down, in front of Jiwon's wheelchair so they were at eye level. I've been at work too much, he admitted. Way too much. I've been a terrible father, Jiwon. I left you alone when you needed me most. I told myself I was working for your future, but the truth is, I was hiding from my sadness about your mother. I was wrong. So wrong. Jiwon didn't know what to say. He had never heard his father talk like this before. His dad always seemed so strong and in control. Now he looked vulnerable and sad. I've been watching you, Daejung continued. I arranged to see the security camera footage from your room. I wanted to know how the hospital staff treated you when they thought I wasn't paying attention. He glanced at Minseo, who stood quietly by the door. And I saw something beautiful. I saw a nurse who cared about you with her whole heart. A nurse who spent her own money on you, who organized a birthday party for you, who sang you lullabies when you were sad. She did all of this not knowing who I was, or that I was watching. She did it simply because you needed kindness. Jiwon looked at Minseo with wide eyes. You did all that just because you cared about me? Minseo walked over and knelt beside Daejung. Of course I did, Jiwon. You're special, you're important, and you deserve to be loved. But yesterday you were different, Jiwon said, his voice small. You didn't stay with me. I thought you were leaving me too. I'm so sorry about that, Minseo said, taking his hand. My boss told me I was spending too much time with you and that I had to stop. She said I was breaking the rules. I didn't want to stop, but I was afraid of losing my job. I needed my job to help my mother. I understand, Jiwon said quietly. You have other people who need you too. But she shouldn't have had to choose, Daejung said firmly. What she was doing was helping you get better. That should have been celebrated, not punished. So I came to the hospital today and fixed things. What do you mean? Jiwon asked. Daejung smiled. Minseo is going to be working here in a special new job. She's going to help children like you who are in the hospital for a long time. She's going to teach other nurses how to care for patients the way she cared for you, and she'll still be able to spend time with you whenever you need her. Jiwon's face lit up with hope. Really? Minseo, you're really staying? I'm really staying, Minseo confirmed with a warm smile. I'm not going anywhere, Jiwon. I promise. Jiwon started crying, but these were happy tears. This is the best news ever. He reached out and hugged Minseo tightly. Thank you for not giving up on me. Minseo hugged him back, her own tears falling. I could never give up on you, sweetheart. When they pulled apart, Jiwon looked at his father with uncertain eyes. Dad, does this mean you're not giving up on me either? Daejung felt his heart break. Oh, Jiwon, I never gave up on you. I just lost my way. But I'm finding it again thanks to Minseo. She showed me what it means to truly care for you. She showed me what I should have been doing all along. He took a deep breath. I'm going to make changes, son. Big changes. I'm going to work less and be with you more. I'm going to come to your physical therapy sessions. I'm going to eat meals with you. I'm going to be the father you deserve. Do you really mean it? Jiwon asked, afraid to hope. I really mean it, Daejung promised. And I'm going to start right now. Have you eaten dinner? Jiwon shook his head. I wasn't hungry. Well, I'm starving, Daejung said. And I bet Minseo is too. What if we all have dinner together right here? I'll order from that Korean restaurant you love, the one your mom used to take you to. We can have japchae and bulgogi and all your favorites. Jiwon's eyes went wide. The one with the really good kimchi? That's the one, Daejung confirmed. What do you say? Yes, Jiwon said excitedly. Can we really do that? We can do whatever we want, Daejung said. I'm not leaving you tonight. I'm going to stay right here. For the first time in 2 years, Jiwon felt truly happy. He had his father back and he had Minseo. He wasn't alone anymore. While Daejung ordered the food, Minseo helped Jiwon get comfortable. They set up a small table where they could all eat together. Other nurses peeked into the room, surprised to see the director had approved this unusual arrangement. But seeing Jiwon's happiness, they smiled and let it happen. The food arrived and the three of them sat together eating and talking. Daejung asked Jiwon about his drawings, his physical therapy, and his favorite cartoons. He really listened to the answers, asking follow-up questions and showing genuine interest. Ji-won talked more than he had in months, his words tumbling out in excitement. Tell Dad about the dog breeds you learned, Min-seo encouraged. Ji-won launched into an enthusiastic explanation of golden retrievers, complete with details about their temperament and why they made good therapy dogs. Dae-jung listened with amazement. His son was so smart and passionate. How had he missed this? You know, Ji-won, Dae-jung said thoughtfully, I've been thinking about getting a dog. Our house is big enough and I think we could both use a companion. What do you think? Ji-won nearly dropped his chopsticks. A real dog for us? For us, Dae-jung confirmed. You can help pick one out, and we can train it together. But I can't walk it, Ji-won said, his excitement dimming. I can't take care of it properly. Sure you can, Dae-jung said. You can feed it. You can brush it. You can play with it. And I'll help with the walking until your physical therapy gets you strong enough to walk with support. We'll be a team. Min-seo watched this interaction with joy in her heart. This was what Ji-won needed. This was what he had been missing. They finished dinner and Dae-jung kept his promise to stay. He pulled a chair next to Ji-won's bed and settled in. I'm not leaving tonight, he said. I'll sleep right here in this chair. And tomorrow we'll spend the whole day together. The whole day? Ji-won asked in disbelief. The whole day, Dae-jung promised. I've canceled all my meetings for the rest of the week. You're more important than any business deal. Ji-won looked at his father with such love and gratitude that Dae-jung had to wipe tears from his eyes. I love you, Dad, Ji-won said. Even when you were gone, I still loved you. I love you too, son, Dae-jung replied, his voice thick with emotion. And I'm so sorry I made you doubt that. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you. Min-seo stood up quietly. I should let you two have some time alone, she said. I need to check on my other patients. Will you come back? Ji-won asked quickly. Of course, Min-seo promised. I'll check on you before my shift ends. And tomorrow we can start planning the new program together. You can help me decide how to make other kids feel special, just like you did. I can help? Ji-won asked. Absolutely, Min-seo said. You're the expert on what kids in the hospital need. Your ideas will be very important. Ji-won beamed with pride. I'd love to help. After Min-seo left, Dae-jung helped Ji-won get ready for bed. They talked about everything. Memories of Ji-won's mother, plans for the future, and the changes they would make together. Ji-won showed his father all the drawings Min-seo had encouraged him to create. Dae-jung looked at each one carefully, praising his son's talent. You're really good at this, Ji-won, Dae-jung said, studying a particularly detailed drawing of a dog. Have you thought about taking art classes? I didn't think I could, Ji-won admitted. I thought art classes were for normal kids. You are a normal kid, Dae-jung said firmly. You're a kid who uses a wheelchair. That doesn't make you less normal. It makes you uniquely you. And I'll find you the best art teacher in the city. We'll set up a studio space at home where you can create whenever inspiration hits. Ji-won couldn't stop smiling. Everything was changing so fast, but it was all changing for the better. 3 months passed. True to his word, Dae-jung transformed his life. He reduced his work hours dramatically, putting trusted executives in charge of day-to-day operations. He attended every single one of Ji-won's physical therapy sessions, cheering him on and encouraging him. They got a golden retriever puppy named Buddy, who became Ji-won's constant companion. Min-seo launched the compassionate care program with Ji-won's input. They created training materials for nurses on how to provide emotional support to long-term pediatric patients. The program was so successful that other hospitals started asking about implementing it. Min-seo was invited to speak at a national nursing conference, where she shared Ji-won's story and emphasized the importance of seeing patients as whole people, not just medical cases. The local news picked up the story, and Min-seo received a prestigious nursing award for her dedication and innovation in pediatric care. At the award ceremony, Ji-won and Dae-jung sat in the front row, clapping louder than anyone else. But the best change was in Ji-won himself. With his father's consistent presence and Min-seo's continued support, he flourished. He started online school classes and made friends with other students. His physical therapy progressed to the point where he could walk short distances with leg braces and support. The day he took his first assisted steps was celebrated by everyone who knew him. On that particular day, both Min-seo and Dae-jung stood on either side of Ji-won in the physical therapy room. The therapist had set up parallel bars for support. Ji-won gripped the bars tightly, his face determined. You can do this, Minseo encouraged. We believe in you. I'm right here, son, Daejung said, his hand ready to catch Jiwon if he stumbled. Take your time. Jiwon took a deep breath and moved his right leg forward. Then his left leg, the one that didn't work well, moved with effort and determination. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. He was walking. I'm doing it, Jiwon shouted with joy. Look, I'm really walking. Minseo and Daejung both had tears streaming down their faces. The therapist was grinning from ear to ear. Other patients and staff in the room started clapping and cheering. Jiwon made it all the way across the parallel bars. When he reached the end, he looked back at Minseo and his father with the biggest smile anyone had ever seen on his face. Did you see that? I walked. We saw it, Daejung said, his voice choked with emotion. We saw it, and we're so proud of you. Later that day, they all sat together in what used to be room 304, but was now Minseo's office for the Compassionate Care Program. Jiwon was officially discharged from the hospital, healthy enough to go home. But he had insisted on one last visit to say goodbye to all the nurses and to see Minseo's new office. I'm going to miss being here, Jiwon said, looking around the room where so much had changed for him. This is where my life got better. You don't have to miss it completely, Minseo said. You'll come visit me often, right? And you're going to help me with the program. You're my special consultant, really? Jiwon asked. Really, Minseo confirmed. Who better to tell us what kids need than someone who's been through it? Jiwon nodded seriously. I can do that. I want to help other kids feel the way you made me feel, like I matter. You do matter, Jiwon, Daejung said, putting his arm around his son. You matter more than anything in the world. They sat quietly for a moment, all three of them reflecting on the journey they had taken together. Then Jiwon said something that surprised them both. You know what's funny? When I made my birthday wish, I wished that Minseo could be my mom. But now I realize I don't need that. I have my dad back and he's amazing. And I have Aunt Minseo, who's like family in a different way. I have everything I need. Minseo smiled and ruffled his hair. Aunt Minseo. I like that title. Me too, Jiwon said, grinning. Daejung looked at Minseo with deep gratitude. Thank you, he said simply. Thank you for seeing my son when I was too blind to really see him. Thank you for teaching me what it means to be present. You didn't just save Jiwon. You saved me too. I just did what felt right, Minseo said humbly. Jiwon deserved kindness and I'm glad I could give it to him. You gave us both so much more than kindness, Daejung said. You gave us hope, connection, and a new start. That's priceless. As they prepared to leave, Jiwon wheeled himself over to the window where he used to sit alone and sad. He looked out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the evening sky. I used to look out this window and feel so lonely, he said quietly. Now when I look out, I feel grateful. Everything bad that happened led to something good. It led to this. Minseo joined him at the window. That's a very wise way to look at it, Jiwon. My name means wisdom, Jiwon said with a small smile. Maybe I'm finally living up to it. They left the hospital together that evening. A father who had learned what truly mattered, a son who had found his voice and his strength, and a nurse who had proven that compassion and dedication could change lives. Their story spread throughout the hospital and beyond, inspiring others to see patients not as cases to manage but as people who need connection and care. Years later, when Jiwon was asked to speak at Minseo's retirement ceremony, he told the story of a lonely boy in a hospital room who thought nobody cared. He told the story of a kind nurse who took the time to see him, really see him, and who changed everything. And he told the story of a father who learned that success wasn't measured in money or business achievements, but in the love and time you give to the people who matter most. Nurse Minseo once told me that I mattered, Jiwon said to the assembled crowd. She didn't know it then, but she was teaching me the most important lesson of my life. We all matter. Every single person has value, and sometimes all it takes is one person who's willing to see that value and nurture it. One person who cares. Thank you, Aunt Minseo, for being that person for me. You'll never know how many lives you changed by simply choosing kindness. As the audience applauded, Minseo wiped tears from her eyes. She looked at Jiwon, now a confident young man pursuing his dreams of becoming an artist and advocate for people with disabilities. She looked at Daejung, who had become not just a better father, but a philanthropist funding compassionate care programs in hospitals across the country. She had just been a nurse, doing what felt right in her heart. She had never imagined that choosing to sit with a lonely boy one night would lead to all of this. But that's how change happens, she realized. One small act of kindness at a time. One person choosing to care when it would be easier not to. One moment of connection that ripples out and touches countless lives. As she stood to receive her retirement award, Mincio looked out at the faces in the crowd. Nurses she had trained, families she had helped, children whose lives she had touched. And in the front row, Jiwon and Daijung smiled at her with love and gratitude. It had all started with a lonely boy by a window and a nurse who decided to stay. And from that simple beginning, everything had changed.